Okay, I think we are live. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Welcome to another live stream here. Hope you guys are all having a good weekend. I'll keep checking the comments here, make sure you guys can hear me and everything, make sure you can see me, all that good stuff. And if you've been to any other live streams in the past here, I'm just going to try and answer as many questions as I can here in the comments. I do have super chat enabled. I'm going to try and answer questions regardless of whether or not it's a super chat question or not. But if it gets really busy in here, those questions will take priority if people want to do super chat. If not, no worries. I don't care. Just that's always an option. But yeah. So anyway, already have several people here. Thank you guys for joining. I see. Thank you, Yad, for saying everything's good. Glad you guys can hear me okay. So we got a bunch of questions already. I saw Class Act had commented here about how he's liking the muscle car reviews. I'm glad you guys are enjoying them. They've actually been doing better than I expected them to do, because in the past when I've done classic cars, they haven't been super popular, but these past few have been really well received. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying them. Unfortunately, those are the only classic car reviews that I've done so far. So I don't have anything else planned currently. I do have a few. I think I have one or two people that have offered some other classics that I'm going to try and review this spring. But in the meantime, there's going to be a little bit of a gap in the classic car reviews. So hopefully those of you that were fans of those can hold out for a couple of months until I can get some more filmed. But those were a ton of fun. And I'm so passionate about classic cars. I'm so glad that many of you enjoy those videos. Hopefully we can do some more of those. But anyway, wow, so many of you guys already. So let's get right into some of the questions here. Barry Harris Jr. says, hello, Matt, great seeing you again. Any goals or cars you're hoping to review for 2020? So I think all the cars that I really am looking forward to so far for 2020, I already know I will be able to review. So since you guys on the live stream here, you get the early info on this. I will actually be driving the C8 this coming week. And that review should be going live this weekend. I was very fortunate to be invited to that. Not a lot of people were, and I am very, very excited to drive the new Corvette. That is going to be a big deal. And I think probably might be the biggest review of the year, honestly, even though it's only February. I think that's the car everyone's most excited for this year. So that's going to be a big one. I actually will be driving the new 4-cylinder Supra here, and also the upgraded 6-cylinder version in a couple of months. A new Type R is something that I'm going to be driving this year. I'm looking forward to. They made a few tweaks to that, and I'm always excited to drive the Civic Type R. Those are just fantastic. Aside from that, I'm very curious about like the Toyota RAV4 Prime, because it's actually kind of sporty and also has really impressive electric range. So I'm hoping to review that, this year, and I think that'd be kind of very interesting from a curiosity standpoint. But we have our first super chat here from Phoenix Cruiser. Thank you for the super chat. He says, waiting on the Flex Limited V6 twin turbo. Yeah, those are pretty rare. Honestly, I'd be up for reviewing one because they do have a lot of power and it'd be kind of a fun thing. My father-in-law actually did test drive a Ford Flex. He was considering buying one before he bought his Regal Tourex. And so he drove one. I did not drive it. I rode in it, but it's a very big and a little bit soft, cruiser. But it's just amazing how huge those things are. I mean, they look big, but when you're in it, it is like really big and roomy. It's kind of funny. So I've ridden in one, but have not driven one. Other stuff here. Joe Taylor says, future of Infinity. That is a very good question, Joe. I have no clue. I think it's going to be really tricky, especially because like if the new Nissan 400Z or whatever that they're rumored to be working on, if that gets the Q60 powertrain, then that really even gets rid of any kind of interest in the Q60 unless you want a more luxurious Z. And it sounds like the SUVs are kind of struggling. I saw one of the very early people that commented here was asking about the variable compression engine, which Infiniti and Nissan both use. And it sounds like people don't love that engine in the QX50. So I think Infiniti's been taking a few chances and they haven't paid off for them. I hope that they, can figure things out. But I don't know what's going to happen to Infiniti. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they either pulled out of the States or really cut back a lot. Especially, Nissan's just struggling to survive on their own. Infiniti's probably way down on the totem pole as far as stuff they're worried about. But anyway, other stuff here. Ariel asks, what's a good car to buy / lease for a college student? it really comes down to personal preference. A lot of people, will message me on Facebook. That's usually where I answer a lot of car buying questions from you guys. And, it always helps to know what you're into. Some people want rear wheel drive, some people want front wheel drive, some people need 4 doors to carry people, some people don't, some people need all wheel drive, all kinds of stuff. I think one of my favorite budget vehicles for people that I often recommend though is the Civic Si, not the new gen Civic Si, but the last ones with the high revving, naturally aspirated 4 cylinders. Those are, I think, really a great value, and they last forever. I mean, they'll go 200,000 miles without breaking a sweat. So very reliable, a lot of fun, very comfortable and livable, very easy to manage, especially if you're a somewhat newer driver. And so that's always one of my go-to suggestions is the Civic SIs. Jedediah says, in your opinion, what's the absolute best car under $30,000? That again comes down to your personal preference, but since you asked, in my opinion, I think it's probably the EcoBoost Mustang still. I think you just get so much car for under 30 grand. I mean, obviously I'm interested in performance cars. So if you're talking about SUVs or something like that, it'd be a different answer. But I think as far as performance stuff goes, yeah, they're a little bit on the heavy side, but if you can deal with that, I mean, the amount of power, the amount of comfort and tech that you get for under 30 grand is pretty impressive in the EcoBoost. So that's probably one of the standout ones in my mind. Jason asks, hey, Matt, good to see you. Thanks for joining, Jason. He says, did you go to Chicago this week? I did not. Didn't go to the Chicago Auto Show. Auto shows, those videos just never really do well views-wise for me, and so I just can't justify going to shows and spending all the money on hotels and traveling and all that kind of stuff, and then having the videos not do well. It just doesn't ever work out for me. But it's all good. I like covering them here for the weekly updates that many of you really enjoy, and just covering the auto shows from the comfort of my own office here. So that works out just fine for me. So no worries there. Joe asks, any plans for another car anytime soon? I'm always car shopping, even when I don't have a good reason to. I try and justify it. I'm like, oh, what about this hypothetical situation where I might need a third car for this, that, or the other? Because, my wife has her C-Class, which is all-wheel drive and has snow tires. So that's the winter car for the most of the time. So the Bullet's been sitting most of this winter, but that's okay because, it kind of spares it all the salt and stuff. But, there have been a few things I've been kicking around for a third car potentially. But yeah, I can't justify a third car currently. The main priority this year is going to be we're going to be hopefully moving to have more garage space. Right now we have a 1-car garage, and so the Bullet stays nice and dry and warm here in the garage. But unfortunately, the wife's car sits outside. I would rather that not be the case. So first priority is getting more garage space before I get more cars. Hopefully we'll get a 3-car garage or more, and then from there we can start adding some cars once the money allows it. But I still would love an F-Type. That's probably my go-to, because I love having the Bullet, and I'm going to keep the Bullet forever, but I'd love to have a convertible as well for nice days when I just want to put the top down. And I think the F-Type, especially with those getting so cheap on the used market now, it's a very appealing option. So I think that is still probably going to be my next move, but maybe I'll, throw in another car there in the meantime. We'll have to see. Shamil, thank you for the super chat. He says, thoughts on upcoming electric trucks, Cybertruck, Rivian, Nikola Badger, mainstream brands, lots of performance and capability on paper. I agree. And I actually, if you didn't catch this past week's weekly update, I talked about the Nikola Badger, and I'm very impressed with what they did with the Nikola. I think it's very innovative, very, very smart. And, having the hydrogen in addition to a huge normal electric battery, I think is very, very cool. And I think that could be a great solution for people who are like, but what if I need to go on a road trip in my electric car? Now you have an option. You have the battery and you have your 300 miles of range when you need it. And then otherwise, if you need to go for 600 miles, you just top off that hydrogen tank and go. And then if you can't find a hydrogen station, not a big deal. You just go back to Tesla life basically and just look for a charger every 300 miles. So I think that's pretty brilliant. Cybertruck, we'll have to see. I still don't even know what to expect with Cybertruck because they cannot build it the way that it looks right now. There is just no way that would pass, I think, pedestrian safety stuff. There's no way it would pass. I mean, even if it's in like the heavy duty class of trucks, I still think it's not production ready the way it looks. So I'm not sure what to expect with that. As far as the Rivian and stuff, They sound very impressive on paper, like you mentioned. It's just I have no clue how they're going to actually deliver that and how reliable they'll be, because these are all brand new brands. That's the thing. We're not talking about established companies outside of Tesla. We're talking about brand new companies that have never built a car before, don't have any service centers, don't have any dealerships, no infrastructure. So it'd be very interesting to see, how they all can actually deliver on all these big promises. Zachary asks, hey, Matt, I was on the web looking at cars, and there was a 2006 Honda Accord V6 with 204,000 miles on it, and it looks brand new. Yeah, I mean, Hondas, especially those older Hondas, are really bulletproof still. And yeah, the Honda Accord V6 is a great car. I actually had someone recently offer a 2016 Accord V6 Coupe manual, and I'm going to be hopefully reviewing that this spring. That's a really rare unicorn of a car, and I know many of you enjoyed my past two Accord Coupe reviews I did a few years back, so I'm hoping to review that here in the spring. Cameron asks, 2014 or 2015 Mustang GT? My answer, of course, is the 2015. I love the newest gen Mustangs here, of course, this Bullet being my fourth one now. But the 2014s, I still love, the last, run of those retro looking Mustangs. They're a lot of fun and very cool as well. So you can't go wrong with either, but I like the tech and the extra safety of the 2015s myself. Hayden asks, WRX or BRZ and why? I would probably still go BRZ personally. I have not driven a WRX with the new handling package that they had, the performance pack, but I still was a little underwhelmed a few years back when I reviewed the normal WRX. And I think it's a great car if you just are really worried about straight line speed. But I think if you want really good handling, you got to step up to the STI. And I love that the BRZ is such a very raw handling vehicle, and I still miss my BRZ from time to time. I love the Bullet and stuff, but sometimes having that little light BRZ, I do miss that in corners every once in a while. So those are a lot of fun still. Carlos asks, Mini Cooper S or EcoBoost Mustang? Personally, I would say EcoBoost Mustang, but the Mini's a lot of fun too. And especially if you're in tight spaces a lot, pretending like you're in the Italian job was a lot of fun whenever I was in a Mini Cooper S that I had for 6 months. Ryan says, Matt, why do you think people like an SUV over a wagon? I think really what it comes down to with SUVs is the ride height. I think people like sitting up higher. I think that gives them a sense of safety and security. And also for those who aren't very flexible, it's less bending over and, all that kind of stuff. And even, like for parents with like kids that are in car seats, the difference between, not having to bend as much in an SUV and just putting them in a seat versus having to bend over and, get them in and watching out for the roof in a low slung vehicle. I think a lot of those, are good reasons for why people prefer SUVs. Personally, I still love the wagons, but I think there are some advantages to an SUV, and I can't really blame people that do enjoy them. But Doug, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Matt, thanks for all you do. Should I supercharge my BRZ or buy a used Camaros S1LE? I guess it depends on what you like about the BRZ. So if you really like that simple, lightweight handling feel, then I think you're better off just keeping the BRZ. But I mean, when I reviewed the Supercharged BRZ several years ago now, it really just feels like it's got a 6-cylinder. So it's more power for sure, and it does come in, fairly low in the RPM range, but it still doesn't change the character of the BRZ motor, where you kind of have that little bit of a dead spot in the middle of the RPM band there. And I think, yeah, if you want really just a boatload of torque immediately and you like the V8 sound, the Camaros S1LE is going to do that. And it also still has very good handling. So it just comes down to just how light of a vehicle you want. Personally, now that I've been infected by the muscle car bug, I think I would probably pick the Camaros S personally, just because I really like the power delivery in those, and they are very impressive handlers as well. So that would be my pick, I think. But thank you for the question in the super chat. Robert asks, would you like to start reviewing motorcycles, or would you ever want to? And this is a question I actually have been getting more and more often recently. I personally am not a huge fan of motorcycles as far as me riding them, just because there's so many distracted drivers out there these days, and you have very little protection on a motorcycle. And so even if I had the most confidence in myself and I was an awesome rider, which I'm not, I've only ridden one once, and I did a quick little vlog on it several years ago, and I was just riding around in a yard and I laid it down in the yard because I was not great with that. But anyway, but even if I was an amazing rider, I still would just be like really worried about everyone else. And if I'm going to have someone hit into me, I want to have airbags and metal and weight in my favor. So as cool as I've heard motorcycles are and the rush that they are, I don't feel that need for extra adrenaline. I'm happy with the excitement I get from cars, and that's enough for me. And I will cut my losses there. So, yeah, we'll not be doing any motorcycle reviews. So we have Subi Nate. Thank you for joining, man. He's always commenting in the videos. I really appreciate it, and thanks for joining the live stream here. Mally asks, "How about a 2021 Jaguar F-Type review?" I would love to if I get the opportunity. Jaguar doesn't send me any kind of press vehicles or invite me on any of their launch programs, so don't know if I'll have an opportunity. But the past F-Type reviews have been by owners, so if an owner offers one, I would love to review one for sure. Joe, thank you for the super chat. He says, "How do you stay motivated doing YouTube all these years?" And I think it's just a natural curiosity for me. I'm always curious about what car is coming out next. That's why I keep doing the weekly updates, and I'm always trying to figure out spy shots and see what's in the pipeline and stuff. Like, I'm not even content with just knowing what's out there now. I want to know what's coming in the next 5 years, and I'm always wanting to see what's coming next. And I think that just keeps me motivated. Even if I didn't do this channel, I would constantly be on the news sites every day, saying, "Oh, what's coming next?" and stuff. It's just kind of the way that my mind works, I guess. And so that keeps me motivated. And also just getting all the messages I get from many of you who say, "I bought this car after watching this review." That kind of stuff is really, really motivating for me. And, the reason why I started doing reviews in the first place was because I know how much having a fun car improves my life and how much it adds to my life. And I think that if every single person in the world had a car that they enjoyed and they put a smile on their face every day, I think they would have a slightly better life, and the world would be a slightly happier place. And if I can help people find that car with my reviews, then that is me kind of contributing in my own little way, and hopefully making at least a few people a little bit happier. So that keeps me motivated for sure. Rivik, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Will Lexus redesign of their rear-wheel, or when will Lexus redesign their rear-wheel drive sedans?" I actually heard potentially could be coming this year. I don't have any solid info on that. I don't even remember where I heard that, but I did hear IS could be coming this year. GS, I think, is still a wild card just because no one really knows where the GS fits into the lineup anymore, because you have the ES, which is basically the same size. And so I'm not sure about the GS, but I think the IS is this year, if I'm not mistaken. Gearhead 704, thank you for the super chat. He says, "I hope we can still get together to review my Fox body. I need to rebuild the engine first. Thanks for being a big part of starting my own YouTube journey." Yeah, we tried to set something up. I was in North Carolina last fall. It didn't work out with the weather and the timing and stuff, but hopefully we can do something here. I will be actually in North Carolina late this spring, so I'll have to reach out to you again if your car is ready by then. Let me know, and we could do a review on that. That would be a lot of fun. The Fox bodies are so raw and very exciting. Also, Ben C, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Which did you enjoy more, the BRZ or the MX-5 RF?" MX-5 RF, I think, just because it has a little bit more punch down low than the BRZ does and feels a little more lively. I also really like the open air experience that you don't get with the BRZ. So personally, if it were me buying one or the other today, I would definitely go for an MX-5 over the BRZ for sure. Subi Nate, thank you for the super chat. #1 fan. Yeah, I appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for the super chat. That's really generous of you. Yeah, there's no question though attached to that. But if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them here. Jason though says, "Is there any news on the TLX, MDX, ILX, and RLX redesigns, or a new Type R or Type S NSX?" So TLX, I believe, so there is going to be the new TLX, I think, coming this year. That's what the Type S concept was about last year. So that is coming, I believe, this year. MDX, there was a leak. I talked about this in one of my weekly updates last year, where there was a leaked timeline showing the TLX and the MDX. I believe TLX comes first. MDX comes either the end of this year or next year. ILX, I'm not sure if they're doing anything new. RLX might also be dead. I'm not sure. Neither of those really sell very well for them, so I'm not sure. Type R or Type S NSX. I hear rumors from time to time, but I haven't seen any concrete stuff to really confirm that anything's happening with the NSX. So I don't know what's going on there with that, unfortunately. William Long, though, thank you for the super chat. He says, what did you want to be growing up? Car related. Well, I think whenever I was younger, whenever I was really young, I wanted to be a train engineer. But once I grew up, I think I always wanted to be a car reviewer. Ever since I was about like 10 or 11, I would read Road and Track from cover to cover. And I was always wanting to do that as my career. But then I went to college for financial planning because back in 2008, whenever I was looking for majors in college and graduating high school there, it was still, working for a car magazine was the only way you could review cars. And, you made like 30 grand a year and had to live in New York or LA or Detroit. And aside from Detroit, New York and LA are very expensive on a low salary. So I gave up on that. But then thankfully, by the time I had graduated, just in time to not use my degree, is whenever I figured I'd give the YouTube channel a try here, because I had a few friends that had been able to do that successfully. And it kind of took off from there. But yeah, this was always the big dream for me, was to be a car reviewer. So that I'm living the dream quite literally. I'm very grateful for that. And that's all thanks to you guys for watching. I would not be able to do this without you guys. So it means a lot. Jay Joffer, thank you for the super chat as well. He says, I'm buying a 2019 Camaro this week. Congrats. I'm glad someone is buying them, because Camaro is really struggling in the sales department and they're so fantastic. It kind of is perplexing to me. But anyway, he says, should I PPF or ceramic coat? If PPF, what's the best brand? So if you didn't catch my videos, I've done a ceramic coating video and a PPF video whenever the Bullet had both of those done. The ceramic coatings are nice, but they don't provide as much protection. So it really depends on what you're going for. If you want protection, then PPF is definitely the better choice. If you want just a really nice appearance and you just really want it to look slick, ceramic coating is the way to go there. So depending on what you want, will dictate that. But I personally, if I could only pick one or the other, I would definitely pick PPF over ceramic coating, just because I do a lot of driving and I would rather not have rock chips than have a coating that makes it look a little bit nicer than just a fresh wax job. So yeah, I would do PPF personally out of the two. And Newt Media, thank you for moderating this. He's helping me out here. Always appreciate. Me and him go way back, so I appreciate you hanging out here as well, Zach. And by the way, if you want to see some great car photography, Newt Media on Instagram, he takes some great pictures. He's the one that did my a whole photo shoot with the Bullet back whenever I first got it about a year and a half ago now, and yeah, he does some great work. So Steven Mendez says best car 30 grand and under. Someone else asked this a little bit earlier. My pick would still be the EcoBoost Mustang. If you're talking about performance vehicles, it's just a really, really good value for the money. Kay Lee says, hi, Matt. What would be the best replacement for my dad's 2003 Lincoln Town Car? Depends on, his budget and what he likes. But I think, honestly, the Lincoln Continental is another very underrated vehicle that, especially if he likes Lincoln, stick with Lincoln. The Continental, I think, is a fantastic car. So definitely worth checking out if he's into those. I really love the styling on the new ones, too. Gradsky Media says thoughts on the Porsche Macan. That's one of the few vehicles I have not been able to get my hands on after all these years of it being out. But the Macan, I've always admired those, but I actually have never driven a Macan, so I cannot weigh in on them aside from saying they're very good looking. I think the performance, it always sounds like they're very impressive, and I'd love to drive one someday. They are very expensive though for what you get, so it's really one of those luxury tax kind of things in some ways, but if you can afford it, very sweet vehicles. James Deem, thank you for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, I'm looking into getting a 2011 to 14 5.0 Mustang. What's your take on these? Is it worth it? They are a lot of fun, and I still think that is another very good bargain for the money if you want a very solid performance vehicle. I personally like the 13 to 14 styling better, and I think by those years you also get a little bit better reliability, because the very early 2011 5.0s and the 2012s did have a few transmission issues with those very first MT82s. So I would try and go closer to the 13s or 14s if you can afford it. I think that would be the safer pick, and I think they actually look a little bit better personally as well. But I think they're definitely worth it. They're fantastic values and very sweet vehicles. And if you're curious, many years ago, back when That Dude in Blue came to Pittsburgh and his Mustang GT was fairly stock, his 2013, I reviewed his, and you can go check that video out. It's a lot of fun. Those are fantastic. Amari and Ellis says, what was the first vehicle you have loved? I think actually my first car I really enjoyed. It was a 97 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport that was handed down to me by my dad. And it's a really fun vehicle. You can actually see more. Many years ago, I ran a Carfax on all my old cars. So if you search for Carfax or something like that on my channel, you should be able to find that video and see some pictures of that. I souped it up a little bit, only had it for about 6 or 9 months as my own vehicle before I upgraded to my Legacy GT Spec B, but it was a lot of fun. Kara says, what is your dream car? I think right now my ultimate dream car is a Ferrari 812 GTS. Having that screaming V12 engine with the roof off is my idea of perfection. So that would be definitely my top pick, I think, as far as dream cars go. Lil Chris says BMW 330i or Audi A4. Depends on what generation and what you're looking for. But generally, as far as handling goes, the BMW is going to be the better handler. And the Audi is usually a little less reliable, but neither of them are fantastic as far as used reliability goes. But they're both very cool in their own way, and but I probably go for the BMW myself. Newt Media, thank you for linking the Carfax video there if anyone's curious to watch that. I appreciate it. Matt says, thoughts on the next-gen GTI or Golf R? So yeah, I mentioned that a couple weeks ago in my weekly update as well. Just the basic leaked numbers we have for horsepower and stuff. And it sounds like it's going to be a very nice evolutionary improvement. I don't think it's anything earth-shattering, but I think there'll be good improvements, and I'm just glad they're continuing to bring them here because I guess the GTI does sell fairly well, but there's talks about them not bringing the next-gen Golf here to the States because the standard Golf just doesn't sell. But the GTI, I'm actually more excited for the GTE. I really hope they bring that to the States because that has like GTI performance, plus it has a little bit of electric range, and that whole plug-in hybrid combo is kind of fascinating to me currently. So that's what I'm actually a little bit more intrigued by, but I don't know if they're going to bring it here or not. Yad asks, is the 10-speed Mustang a good buy, the 10-speed Mustang GT? They are if you want just a Mustang that's an automatic, but they really did skip around with gears a lot, and maybe it was just the one that I had. Some people say that transmission does learn you, so once you actually own one, it should get better. The press car that I had was probably not the greatest, was probably abused, and the transmission was probably very confused about who was driving it and how it should perform. So that's probably why that one wasn't great in my experience. But I don't know. I think I'm hoping that they put the DCT from the GT500 in the Mustangs here in the next year or two. That would be a huge improvement because that dual clutch in the GT500 was amazing. But the 10-speed and the normal Mustangs, not great if you're an enthusiast, in my opinion. But not bad either, but I think I'd just rather have the manual. New Media, thank you for the super chat as well. Totally unnecessary, but thank you so much, man. He asks, G37 S or 370Z, both 6-speed manuals. That really comes down to how much luxury you care about. Personally, I would definitely go G37 S just because it has some decent sound insulation. The 370Z, like the one that I reviewed, I drove it in the rain part of the time I was reviewing it, and it was loud. Like you could hear the rain whipping around the wheel wells. Like it's like they had no sound deadening in the back of the 370Z. I mean, it's a big wide open hatch, so you can't expect too much. But yeah, so but it just depends. Some people don't care about, how well insulated an interior is. If you don't care, 370Z is going to be cheaper and, a little bit sportier because I feel like the wheelbase might be a little bit shorter if I'm remembering correctly, versus the G37 has a little bit of a more stable, less twitchy handling feel to it. But yeah, I would sacrifice a little bit of the excitement of the 370 to go for the better livability of the G37 S. But thank you again for the super chat. Cameron Cruz, thank you for the super chat as well. He says, did you ever watch F1 as a kid? I did not. I never watched any racing, and honestly, I still don't really watch much racing. I've been to an F1 race. I went to the Montreal Grand Prix a few years back with Shell. That was a lot of fun. It's very cool in person. I've just never been much into sports, and that also includes racing. It's not that I don't think it's fascinating. It's just very technical, and I think in the past it just hasn't been super exciting to watch on TV personally. And so yeah, have never watched F1 as a kid, or really anything outside of baseball for that matter. So but yeah, and Newt Media says my 350 is pretty loud. Hear every rock and pebble in the wheel wells. Yeah. Well, the same thing with the 370Z. It's the same exact experience there. So if that's okay with you, go for the 370. If you want to get a little bit quieter, then G37 is the way to go. Subi Nate says, you think the Forester will get the 2.4? I've heard the 2.5 will be put into the refreshed Crosstrek. Interesting. I didn't hear about the Crosstrek rumor, but as far as the 2.4 and the Forester, I think technically they could. And now that they have competition with, the Mazda CX-5 doing their turbo, and you have even the Ford Escape now, it has a turbo option. So there are a decent amount with that 250 odd horsepower offering. I think Subaru might not worry about that as much as the others do, but I think there's a business case to be made there. So I think it is definitely a decent possibility. And considering they're bringing back the XT trim for the Outback and the Legacy, they could very well do that for the Forester as well, if people buy enough of the Outback and the Legacy. I think that's going to be the big thing. Subaru's probably waiting to see, how many people are going to go for these turbo Outbacks and Legacies. And if there's a good take rate, then maybe they'll continue it to the rest of the lineup. If it, crashes and burns, then they probably won't bother. So that's probably how that'll play out. But, who knows what Subaru's up to? They are so good at keeping secrets. I know everyone's been begging me for any kind of info on, what's going on with the next gen WRX. I wish I knew. I'm impatient as well, because I'm like, it's long overdue. What's going on? There's no prototypes been spied out. There hasn't been anything. So I don't know what's going on with the new WRX, but hopefully there's something soon. Thank you so much, viewer from Japan. I really appreciate the super chat there. Unfortunately, I cannot read Japanese. So I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name there, but thank you so much for joining. It is amazing. We have people all over the world watching this. This is so cool. So thank you so much for that. And if you have any other questions, definitely I'll try and answer those. Sean asks, SRT Ram, thoughts? So as far as SRT Ram, we've heard that the Hellcat Ram, I believe, is coming this year, and it's been spied a lot of several times. I think the most recent intel is that it's coming to the New York Auto Show in April, so we shouldn't have much longer to wait for that, and that'll be fantastic. Just imagine all the Hellcat insanity with a Ram. It's going to be amazing, and it's going to send Ford scrambling for that Shelby GT500 motor to hopefully throw in the Raptor and give them some good competition. I think I think the Ram Hellcat is going to kill it in sales, so that's going to be awesome. Jersey Boy Greaser says, ever done a Viper review? Do you think Dodge will make a new model soon? The Viper really I think was kind of disappointing from a sales standpoint with the newest version. I think Dodge has really hit a strong formula with the Challenger and the Charger, and I think their top priority as far as sports cars and stuff go for them is just going to be working on the next gen version of the Challenger and the Charger and making sure they knock it out of the park with that, just like they did with the current generation. So I think that's probably their focus right now, if I were to guess. I don't think there's any new Viper on the horizon that I know of. I know they've tossed around ideas, but I think these days with everyone just rushing to SUVs and sports cars, getting smaller and smaller for the margins and the profitability, I don't think there'll be a new Viper, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I would not hold my breath for that, unfortunately. Other questions here. We have James Parker Jr. Thank you for joining. And he says, I'm so excited for the RS6 Avant. I really hope you get to review one. Epic car. I hope so too. Audi doesn't really show me much love, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I get a chance to hop in one someday, maybe if some owner offers one or something. But yeah, I don't really get a chance to get into too many Audis, unfortunately. Um, Joji Jim says, great to see you collab with Savage Geese. Did you see his Mazda MX-5 documentary series? I saw that he posted that. It's very interesting. I'm curious to watch it. But as many other YouTubers will tell you, we don't watch much YouTube because we're so busy doing our own stuff that trying to watch everyone else's stuff is a struggle. So, I do try and catch up from time to time, but I've not seen that series yet. But I'm very curious to see that. That'd be very cool. X50 Dog says, review a B7 RS4. I would love to. Those are fantastic. I worked at an Audi dealership back when those were brand new and drove them when they were brand new, and they are fantastic, but I have never had a chance to review one, and I would love to. They're very, very special, but as with most of those older vehicles, it's just waiting for an owner to offer one. That's really the only way I can get my hands on one. Jason asks, what type of car do you own? I have a 2019 Mustang Bullet I reviewed about a year and a half ago now, and I have a whole little vlog series. If you go to the homepage on my channel there, you'll see, if you scroll down, all my videos on my Bullet and the vlogs I did on those. It's a fantastic car, and I'll be doing more vlogs in it this year, more adventures, have several trips lined up already, and got some cool stuff planned for it. So it's gonna be a good year, hopefully. Sean K says, what is your opinion of MT82 in your Mustang after experiencing it with the Bullet? Looking at, I lost my place. All the comments are scrolling in. But as far as the MT82, let me see. I got to find the comment again. It like completely disappeared. How did that happen? Oh, he deleted it. Okay, I'll come back to it. Anyway, Rafi says, is there any update on when Honda will reveal the interior of the refreshed Type R? Well, they already revealed the car, and I believe the refresh, if you watch some auto show videos from like my buddy Sophion at Redline Reviews, I believe they covered the interior. I think, what is it getting? Just a volume knob maybe, and a few other little tweaks, very, very minor stuff, but nothing too new there. But yeah, so let me see here. Bob says, thoughts on the next gen Bearsy 86. I don't know what to expect. There was that weird quote from the chief engineer that was saying that it was going to outperform the Supra, which sounds like does not make any sense in any possible world. So I'm not sure how to take that comment. I mean, yeah, it might handle better than the Supra, but even that's tough to do. So I have no clue what to expect, aside from the fact we know it's coming. They confirmed, both Toyota and Subaru, that they are doing a new one. It's happening. So we just have to see, how that plays out. But I have no clue what to expect there. The rumor has been, it'll get the 2.4 liter. From the other Subarus, the turbo motor. Some reports say that it's going to be the non-turbo version of the 2.4. So anywhere between the 260 horsepower it makes in turbo form, or what it would make with an NA form of somewhere in the low 200s would be the guess. But I wouldn't expect any massive jump in power, especially now with the new 4-cylinder Supra that just came out this week. Ryan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, has Ford ruined the ST name with the Edge/Explorer ST? So I didn't drive the Edge version yet, but the Explorer ST, if you watch my review on that, the performance was okay. It's an Explorer that's faster. I think Explorer Sport would still have fit better for the name. I do think they kind of watered down the ST name. Not that it was ever a really, it's not like RS or something. It's not like a name you drool over, but I think that ST had more prestige, and now it's on SUVs. I think it also depends on where you're at, because if you're in Europe, you still have the Focus ST and new Fiesta ST, and they've really innovated with those for Europe. And so for everyone over there, the ST name totally means something different now, unfortunately, than it does here in the States. But yeah, I'm curious to drive the Edge ST, but I haven't heard great things about it. The Explorer ST, in addition to the performance just being, faster, but that's about it. The interiors in those new Explorers was a big letdown for me. And so yeah, not crazy about that. And if you're curious to watch my Explorer ST review, one of the harsher interior reviews I've ever done. A lot of people say I'm not critical enough. If you think that, go watch my Explorer ST review. Thank you so much, Newt Media, for linking that. Other questions here. Dennis says, hey, Matt, I bought a Bullet. That's awesome. Yeah, I've had several people that have said they've bought a Bullet, and I'm so glad that it's resonating with people. I'm a Steve McQueen fan and a Bullet fan, so it was an easy sell for me. But for a lot of people, they're seeing the value of it. It's, you get a lot of extra stuff for not much more money over the other Mustang GTs and stuff. So I think the Bullet's a solid value, and I'm hoping that you're enjoying yours, Dennis. But thanks for letting me know you bought one. Ryan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what do you think about the G37? If you're talking about the two-door version, I was very impressed by it. So I reviewed a G37 S. There's a video you can search for that. It's a very fun vehicle, and I just I love the sound of it. I think it handled pretty well for what it was, and it's pretty good value as well these days for the used ones. The sedan I have not driven, so I cannot weigh in on that, unfortunately. But if it has many of the same things as the coupe, just with the extra practicality, and it doesn't give up too much, then I think it'd be a fantastic little sports sedan as well. That's another vehicle I would like to review someday. Yanal asks, what is your take on the fact that cars like the 2019 01 with 755 horsepower come with manual, but a less than 400 horsepower Supra isn't even offered with manual at all? I know everyone wants a manual Supra. I do as well. The parts bin that is there to just swap it in, it's already ready to go. And there's a few people that have done manual swaps in the new Supra already. I mean, I don't know anything, but if I were to guess, I know that the chief engineer of Supra has said they want to keep it fresh and they want to do something new all the time. And I mean, you look at just already 1 year later, 2021 Supra already has way more power, already has improved handling. We got the 2-liter version. They're keeping it fresh. If I were a betting man, I would probably put a bet that we'll see a manual at some point in the Supra's lifespan. Hopefully sooner rather than later, especially if they want to help out their sales. But I just don't know that, because I don't know about the whole behind the scenes thing with BMW, and if BMW is holding it back because it is a BMW part, and if BMW puts the brakes on it, then maybe they can't do it even if Toyota wants to. I don't know what the politics are behind the scenes on that, but I would like to think that they could just be like, hey, BMW, sell us your M2 manual transmission, please. And they'd say, here you go. And, jack up the price to whatever you have to jack it up to, and done deal. But I know often things aren't that simple, but I'd like to think that they can work something out. We'll have to see. Cameron, thank you so much again for the super chat. He says, thoughts on C6 Vets, especially the automatic ones. I think those will be a phenomenal bargain. Anyone that's in the market for a Corvette this year, you're in for a deal. If you go for the brand new C8, it's a bargain on its own. If you're going for a C7, everyone's dumping their C7s for C8s. The used market on C7s is already getting pretty low, and I think it's just going to keep tumbling as the year goes on. And so if you're a C7 shopper, fantastic news. And everyone who's in a C6 now might be like, wow, I can get a C7 for like 25 grand. I'm going to hop into that. And then there's going to be C6s that are going to get way cheaper. So I think if you're curious about one, this would be the year to buy one. Probably this summer is like peak time when those will really be at really nice affordable prices and be able to enjoy it for this summer. I think they're great. It's been several years since I drove a C6. I think the Z06 version was definitely better than the standard one, in my opinion. But yeah, it's been several years since I've been in one, so I should probably check one out sometime soon here and refresh my memory. But they are still, I mean, the amount of performance you get for the money, it still is one of the phenomenal bargains out there these days on the used market. Ian, thank you so much for the super chat. He's the one I reviewed his GMC Cyclone. If you guys are curious to see that video from this past fall, awesome meeting you, Ian. But he says, do you think Ram would release a lowered sport truck style Hellcat Ram? I wish they would. They did the SRT10 version of the Ram many years ago, but I don't think those sold super well. And these days, everyone's all about the off-road thing and the Raptor style stuff, that Ford introduced. I think that is the way they'll go. But then again, Ram and Dodge in general, they're all very awesome. They do things that other companies don't have the guts to do in many cases. So maybe they'll just be different and be like, sure, like, what does it cost us? Instead of just jacking it up, we'll just slam it to the ground, give it a good suspension setup, and good to go. And I think that's something that's just the right type of crazy. The Dodge could do it. I don't know if they will. Maybe if the Hellcat Ram, the standard one's a huge hit, then they could do that. I hope they do, and I wouldn't put it past them. But thank you so much again for the super chat and for hanging out here. Ghostly and the Bunny says, hello from Columbus, Ohio. Thanks for joining in. Columbus is a great place. I usually make it there at least once a year to review some cars. Harris asks, aren't you Super Brz fan? I am one and the same. So just changed the name back in 2017, and Yep, still love doing this. The one Kia says, good evening, Mr. Moran. Are you still considering a Hellcat Charger as your dad car? Will you consider a CPO E63 wagon or GLE 63 crossover due to Mrs. Moran's familiarity with Mercedes-Benz? Good question. So I am not considering a Charger, and this might be a lame reason, but my main deal breaker with a Charger is its poor crash ratings. The crash test, the IHS was not pretty. Small overlap. It's like basically if you get in a small overlap crash in a Charger or a Challenger, you're probably going to have severe damage to your left leg. And I mean, again, most people don't care about crash test ratings, especially if you're a performance-minded enthusiast. But me personally, it's not a risk I want to take. And so as awesome as they are, that holds me back from ever considering buying any kind of Charger or Challenger personally. Again, might be a dumb reason. Certainly doesn't stop, thousands of other people that buy them every year. Now, as far as the Mercedes stuff, I am not a fan of used German vehicles. They often turn into money pits. I worked at Harrison Auto Sales. They got in a lot of used German vehicles, and a lot of them I witnessed firsthand, alarms going off for no reason. They all have all these electrical gremlins that randomly pop up. And so that's why even with Mrs. Moran's Mercedes here, the past two, we've only leased them. I only lease new German vehicles. They're leasable vehicles. And it's unfortunate, but many of the German companies, they're supposed to be a business lease. They're a disposable car. They swap them out every 3 years, and that's it. And that's all that those companies are worried about, is keeping those lessees happy. And so, I personally would be leery of a used German vehicle personally. Again, it's kind of luck of the draw. Some people get some and they're totally fine. Other people, they buy one. They're like, wow, this is a phenomenal deal. I'm getting a 3-year-old Mercedes for 20 grand. And then they fall apart. And it's like, that's why it's 20 grand. So it's kind of luck of the draw, but I personally would not. So as far as dad vehicles, I don't know if we'll even need one because I think that my wife's C-Class should probably cover that okay. But if not, I'm waiting to see what they do with the next gen WRX. That is a possibility, especially if they do a wagon version, but I know I'm probably hoping in vain for that. But aside from that, there's a few other vehicles that I'm not going to say for now because I'm still kicking them around and how they would be for content and when I'll even need a dad car, because as of right now, I don't. So we'll see, when kids come, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely something that I still kick around for fun because, again, like I said, I'm always car shopping. I'm always kind of wondering, what cars I'm going to get next. It's just fun for me. So yeah, New Media here says the body and the safety is completely out of date at this point. It's due for a refresh on the Charger. And yeah, J-Man says 1982. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, thoughts on the Lamborghini Eris. Did you see Mike's new Eris? I saw that he got one. I did not have a chance to watch that video yet, but my brutal thoughts on the Lamborghini Eris, I still have trouble viewing it as a real Lamborghini. It's an Audi Q8 that's a little bit faster, a little bit crazier looking. I rode in one actually with Drive 615, I believe his channel is, back in New York last April. It was fast. It's a very cool vehicle. But personally, if I'm going for a performance SUV that's that much money, I'm really excited about the new Aston Martin DBX. And I think I'd rather have that. I'd rather have just a Cayenne Turbo or something. Something like that. I'm personally not a fan of Lamborghini Urus, but I know many people are. I think the styling's a little too out there personally. And I don't know. Lamborghini is a brand. I like many of their vehicles, but personally, I'm on the Ferrari side. So that's where my biases lie, I suppose. Jason C says, Levorg STI 2020 wagon coming soon. Yes, for those that are lucky enough to get the Levorg in Japan, and I think in Europe, yeah, you could have that. Unfortunately, here in the States, they show us no wagon love anymore. Subaru says if you want a wagon, you buy an Outback or you buy a Forester or something. They've not had a WRX wagon since, I guess, the hatch technically, which was, ending in 2014. So hopefully they bring it back, but, holding my breath. Forrest Ernest, thank you so much for your comment, for joining us here. He's a frequent commenter on the channel. Thank you so much for joining, man. He says, Kia Stinger GT1 all-wheel drive is the answer to this question, Matt. I remember our discussion. This is what I want too. Yeah, as far as dad cars go, the Stinger is still up there as one of the top picks because you have that huge hatch, so you have almost as much space as most SUVs. fantastic performance and handling, and I like the unpretentiousness of the Kia badge. I think that's actually a selling point for me, to have something that people are like, what? It's a Kia? And it's totally unassuming, and I love that about the Stinger. So yeah, Stinger probably would be the pick, but I still have some other stuff I'm kicking around as well. Asks, did you see the Robert Pattinson Batman reveal? I did, actually. I want to still see the ears. I need to see the ears before I can, really judge. But as a huge Batman fan, I'm excited for it. In the meantime, I'm like all focused on Bond. I'm just super excited for No Time to Die. And, Daniel Craig is like my favorite Bond. So his last movie as Bond is a really big deal for me. As you can see, I literally have the Skyfall poster hanging up in my office here. That's how big of a Bond fan I am, and Daniel Craig. So that's what I'm most excited about as far as movies go for the next few months here. Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat, Manny asks. Yeah, that's going to be a sweet car when that comes out here in the next few months, most likely. That'll be, again, Dodge is just awesome. They're just awesome all the time. It's really kind of enjoyable to watch. That's awesome that they are willing to go out there on a limb. Eric here says, went to the MTL Auto Show last month and felt for the uniqueness of the Land Rover Defender. What are your first impressions? Think it'll have a strong resale value? I'm almost certain it won't have a strong resale value, unfortunately, like any JLR vehicle. But they are very cool. I sat in it at the LA Auto Show, actually, which I didn't do any videos on because I was just there very briefly, and I did a few Instagram stories, and that was about it. But it's very cool inside. I think it'll do well for them, and I do like the uniqueness of it. But, I'm curious to see if I ever get a chance to drive one. Again, JLR doesn't show me much love, so not sure if I'll get a chance to drive one, but I'd love to review one and see, what it's like. Daniel Sherrill, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, can we see your best impression of Doug DeMuro, Sofyan from Redline Reviews, or Jason from Engineering Explained? Well, I can do a Jason impression a little bit decently, I guess. Hello, everyone, and welcome. That's about it. I'm trying to think of what signature Doug thing I could do. I'm not good with impressions generally. I'm good with like celebrity impressions a little bit, like from movies and stuff, because I dabbled in acting briefly, many moons ago. But not great with impressions. But thank you for the super chat. Hopefully you enjoyed my Jason impression, if nothing else. Roy Ward says, what are your thoughts on Cadillac's updated sedan offerings for the CT5, upcoming CT4, and the CT6 ending production? Weak lineup or worthy replacements? That CT5 C-pillar is UGG. Yeah, honestly, I think I like the styling of the CT4 better than the CT5. Like, why does the CT5 not have a continuous LED in the front, but the CT4, the cheaper one, does? It just seems kind of odd. GM, they do some questionable choices now and then, but I think that they are doing the right direction with the Cadillacs. I think sticking with the Alpha platform was a smart move because they are fantastic driving vehicles. The outgoing ATS and CTS were fantastic. At just this point, they're just a little bit dated. And so I think putting a new body on that fantastic platform, and then, we've heard now that the V Plus, or whatever they call the actual V versions for this new generation, are going to keep the same engines as the old ones, which is, music to my ears. I love the 2016 CTS-V that I reviewed with that supercharged V8. Putting that in a newer car sounds great to me. So I'm excited for that. I think it's a solid lineup. I think the thing with GM oftentimes is, aside from the C8, all of the other vehicles are they're priced in a non-competitive way, and they lean heavily on incentives. And so, the Cadillac, it's priced pretty well. And I talked about this in my weekly update briefly. It's priced well. But oftentimes it's just like Cadillacs are a little bit expensive, and you have to be like, but wait, we can knock $5,000 off, and everyone's like, oh, okay, well now it makes sense. And I think that kind of hurts them whenever people are just cross shopping online, and they're like, wow, well this one is this much and this one is this much. Why would I go for the Cadillac? So I think that kind of hurts them a little bit. But hopefully, they keep the pricing very competitive here, and they do well for them. Newt Media says, what about Scotty, though? Here are the top 10 cars that won't last 100,000 miles. Yeah. Oh, Scotty. Yeah. Pez says Scotty is an idiot. I'm not going to comment. Don't want to start any drama, but I'm just going to plead the fifth on Scotty. Kaz Nino, apologies, says, did you ever see yourself owning an EV? I think as long as I continue to stay alive long enough, I think it's inevitable that we'll all own EVs. It's just something that's going to happen, whether that's in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 50 years. Eventually, it's not going to be combustion engines forever. And so, I think I could see myself owning an EV. Even right now, I was really impressed with the Mini Cooper SE, electric one that I drove in Miami a couple weeks ago and posted the review on that. It's a really fun little car. Having that instant power is really very fun, especially in a city atmosphere where you need that power instantly. It's very zippy. And I think, as an errand car, if I needed something just to run back and forth to the airport in, just running around town, getting groceries, things like that, an electric car makes a lot of sense as a second or third car. For a lot of people, it's hard to have as an only car. I totally understand that. I am in agreement there. But I think eventually, I could see myself owning an EV. I'd probably buy a plug-in hybrid first before I go to the full EV route, just because that's a big leap and the charging infrastructure just isn't there yet. But eventually I could see myself doing that for sure. Braden says, with the new Frontier platform, do you think we'll see a new Xterra? That's actually, I have not heard anyone really speculating on that. I think it would make sense for them to make that. But, I guess it depends how many 4Runners Toyota sells. So that's kind of a similar idea there. But yeah, I think that could do well for them. I don't know if Nissan has the luxury of taking chances right now. With the company just struggling, I think they're going to kind of play it safe for a bit. But I think an Xterra would be a fairly safe bet that it should do decently well for them. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good idea and a good question. Smile Permal says, have you seen 1917 and The Irishman, and any thoughts on those? I've not seen The Irishman. I've not seen 1917 either. I've heard they're fantastic. I really haven't gotten to the movies much in the past few months. I saw Knives Out. I think that was the last movie I saw, and I loved that. Because again, Daniel Craig, I'm a Daniel Craig fan, have to support him. So I went and saw that, and that was really good. Joe asked, would you consider more vlog style videos? I'm going to try more this year. The bullet vlogs last year did not do as well as I hoped they would. They got like 5,000 views each or something. But I'm going to keep trying them because I do hear a lot of people saying they want to see more bullet videos. They want to see more vlogs. It's just those people, I guess there's only 5,000 of them and that's it. So I'm going to try and work on that and try and build that up. I think in the past, I've talked to my wife, Beth, about this a little bit more. And I think what I need to do with the vlogs going forward is I need to make them less formal. I think I still am in like car review mode when I'm doing a vlog, and I have to try and be like formal. And I think a lot of you guys probably want to see a less formal side of me and just more casual like this, just talking and hanging out. And I think I'm going to try and do that for the vlogs this year. Just try and make them a little more casual, a little less polished, and just kind of film whatever happens and post it up and see how you guys enjoy that. But yeah, so that's, I am going to try more vlogs this year and see how that goes. Anis, thank you so much for the super chat. They ask C7 Z51 or C7 Grand Sport, and how important having the magnetic ride suspension option on the Z51. Not planning on tracking the car. If you're not planning on tracking, I don't know if the magnetic ride suspension is a huge difference because I don't know which ones of the C7 had it that I reviewed, but I do know that I did a direct comparison with the non-magnetic ride Camaro SS and a magnetic ride one. And I really couldn't tell much of a difference. And even with the Magna ride in the Mustangs and stuff, I've driven them with and without. It's a nice improvement. Like my Bullet has it, and I paid for that option. So I do believe in it. And it does make a difference. Like in the Bullet, it stiffens it up a little bit more. It just depends on the price premium and how much, you think you want an adjustable suspension. If you think, that you'd really like to have those dual modes, then I think it's probably a nice option to have. But personally, I don't think it's a deal breaker if you don't have it or anything. But I think it's a nice thing to have. Some people are a little weary about it as far as reliability because it's just one extra thing to break. And I can understand that viewpoint as well. But personally, it seems like they're fairly reliable and stuff. So I think if you can go for it and you think you'd appreciate it, I would probably go for the magnetic ride if you can. But thank you so much again for the super chat and for joining us here. Scat Pack Larry says Jeep Grand Cherokee is going to have a new generation next year, and the Trackhawk is going away because of the Hellcat Durango. But will the SRT Grand Cherokee be on the next gen as well? I think Dodge and all of FCA is very performance oriented, and I think they're going to keep doing the performance stuff as long as they can. And so I think it's fairly certain you'll see an SRT version of the next gen Grand Cherokee. It might not happen in the first year or two, but I think eventually it will come because they're doing a new version of those engines, I think, for the Charger and the Challenger. It just makes sense to share it with the other vehicles and spread out the costs. So I think it's probably a safe bet that that's going to happen. I'm going to get a drink here because we've been going for about an hour almost. I'm going to probably do this for about another hour or so. Yeah, I'm hoping you guys are enjoying this here, and we'll keep on going with the questions. All right, so Braden asks, speaking of FCA stuff, will a new Dodge Journey ride on the Alpha platform be rear-wheel drive based? I heard that as a rumor recently, and I talked about that briefly in a weekly update several weeks back, but I think that is probably the way it's going to go. That's what I've been hearing is they'll be built in Italy and all that kind of stuff, possibly. But that's still a little ways off, I think. So I don't think we're going to hear anything about that this year, but I could be wrong. Grand Prix GTP / the Driveway Auto Reviews. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says 2020 Legacy XT or Outback XT. Which one would you take if you had the choice? If you saw my driving review on the Legacy and the Outback, I did not do the Legacy XT, but I did do the Outback XT and the non-turbo Legacy. I'm not in love with the new Subarus. The EyeSight tech is very annoying to me. I think it's the most annoying of all the driver assist systems out there currently. The ride is very soft and comfortable, so if that is a top priority, they're definitely worth looking into. And the turbo motor is nice because that's something that all the competitors don't offer. Between the two, I would probably take the Outback just for the extra versatility. It kind of just makes sense unless you're a really diehard sedan fan. But honestly, if you're going for a turbo sedan, if you need all-wheel drive, the Legacy is great. Otherwise, I would much rather have an Accord 2.0 T Sport. They handle way better and are just way more fun in my opinion. Thank you so much, Newt Media, for all the links as well. If you guys are curious about any of the stuff I'm talking about, he's linking it here, and that's a huge help. Thanks so much, man. Driven Lifestyle says, hey, Matt, love the channel. Keep up the great work. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for commenting. I see your comments pretty often. Thank you so much for always supporting the channel here. We have another question here. Says, best midsize truck, Ford Ranger. Definitely not Ford Ranger, in my opinion. Ford Ranger just has a very dated interior for a brand new truck. Powertrain-wise, I think the Ranger is one of the best ones out there, but I wasn't a fan of the Ranger. That was another. If you want to see more critical reviews, the Ranger is another one where I'm pretty critical that many people, I guess, missed because everyone says I'm so complimentary in my reviews. But that one was another one where I did a decent amount of complaining. Ranger, not a huge fan. I think if you want a midsize truck, if you're okay not having body on frame, I still think the Honda Ridgeline is fantastic. And I think for what most actual truck buyers do with their trucks, the Ridgeline would meet all their needs just fine. And I think the Ridgeline is still my favorite midsize truck. If you actually do need body on frame, I think Tacoma is the way to go because they just basically do not depreciate. So financially, it's probably the smartest choice. They're bulletproof, reliable. So that's a great choice. They're not great to drive. They have kind of some dead throttle response. And obviously it's a midsize truck, so handling isn't exciting or anything. But it's a very solid workhorse. And if that's what you're looking for, I think Tacoma is the way to go as far as midsize trucks, in my opinion. Noel, thank you so much for the super chat here. He says, every time I watch Vehicle Virgins, I appreciate your sincerity even more. Thanks for originality. Thoughts on future compact CUV 4x4s, Ford, Toyota. So I guess you're talking about like Escape, RAV4, stuff like that. I really enjoyed the new RAV4, and it was a very solid vehicle. I did that review, I think, a little over a year ago. If you're curious for my thoughts on that. As far as the Escape, I'm hoping to review one this year. I've not reviewed one yet. I've heard mixed stuff about the new Escape. So obviously I always keep an open mind and I'll form my own opinion, but it's something that I'm kind of cautious about the new Escape. Other ones though, I still think my favorite compact SUV these days is the Mazda, CX-5. I think the CX-5 is just the most fun handling, has the most premium interior for the money, and just looks so good as well. So that would be my pick as far as those go. So, other questions here. Yayman 799 says the new Nissan Titan. It's a new transmission and a slightly upgraded engine. The Titan does not sell very well, so I've never driven one. But considering it doesn't sell well, I probably would be less impressed with it than I am with the other competitors against it. But yeah, again, always open to forming my own opinion if I get a chance to review one, but that's not a vehicle I'm jumping to review or anything. Jonas asks thoughts on the new Fast and Furious trailer. I was all kinds of confused with that Han reveal. Like, I don't know. He seemed pretty dead. Even in Tokyo Drift, he seemed like dead. And then, with I think, what was it, Fast 6, where Jason Statham killed him or whatever. It's been many years since I've even seen that. But I mean, he was like dead. Like you cannot bring him back. So I don't know how we're hopping around the timeline here to have Han be in this. I think someone commented, I think on the trailer on YouTube, and was like, when you're bringing back dead characters, you've run out of ideas. I still, appreciate the Fast and Furious franchise and what it did for the car world. I did not like Fast 8 a whole lot. And Fast 7, to me, again, being a huge Paul Walker fan, was kind of the end of the franchise for me mentally. I will go see Fast 9, and it'll be a fun movie, but I mean, the trailer is just so out there. I really wish they would just do a realistic movie. Like, this is why I'm excited about the new Bond movie, because there's hardly any CGI in Bond. It's all these stunts you see, they really did. There's in the trailer, they're jumping this motorcycle, I don't know, 3 stories high or whatever. Someone actually did that. And all this stuff are real effects. And to me, real effects are what impressed me. That's why I love Bullet, a movie from 50 years ago with a Mustang jumping the hills of San Francisco. That really happened. Half of it was Steve McQueen, was really jumping a Mustang over the hills of San Francisco. That's way more exciting to me than just hey, look, some guy draw a very cool animation on a computer screen of this Charger going off a cliff. To me, it just doesn't do anything for me. But it'll still be fun and I'll watch it. But yeah, the whole Han thing, was not enthused about that. But John M, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I own a Volvo V90 cross country, getting an S60 soon, T6 or T8. Personally, again, I'm really fascinated with plug-in hybrids. So if you can afford to jump to the T8 and you don't mind the extra weight as far as handling goes, definitely go for the T8. I think it's awesome. And you also get the tax credit. I think it's about $5,000 federally, and then whatever your state gets you. So actually kind of can make some extra sense financially as well. I think the T8 is a very cool powertrain. And if you're curious, I know you have a V90 and you're looking at the S60. And I did review an S60 with a T6 motor, by the way, if you're curious about that. But I would go for the T8 if you can. But I am going to be having as a press vehicle in a few weeks a V60, just the normal wagon, not the cross country, if you're curious to hear my thoughts on that. But that's going to be a cool vehicle as well. Anyway, also Noel, thank you so much for another super chat here. He says, I was referring to Baby Bronco, the 4x4 segment. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So yeah, Baby Bronco, that's going to be an interesting thing as well, because you have the Jeep Renegade, which is an established fun little vehicle if you're looking for something like that. Baby Bronco, there's still a lot of stuff up in the air, because I heard it's Escape based. So how much different from the Escape it ends up being is going to be the real differentiator as far as whether that's going to be good or not. And there was talks of Toyota doing in a new FJ Cruiser type thing, but I haven't heard anything about that in at least 6 or 9 months. So I don't know what's going on with that. But that segment's going to really explode this year, though, I think. And we know, Bronco in the normal version is coming in April or so, I think, or springtime, they said. Might be June, too. And the Baby Bronco should be soon after that. But anyway, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But as of right now, I really have no clue, how that segment's going to kind of grow and expand. But Anderson, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, is a 2SS 1LE Camaro worth the price new? I'm going to use it as a daily / canyon carver and fear buying a track used car. I think that's really the nice thing about buying new. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you buy a new car, you waste all this money. But I'm a really big fan of buying new, because you are the only one that's ever driven that vehicle, as long as it's, very low miles and hasn't been beaten on in test drives and stuff. But that's the only way to know that it hasn't been abused, and is, the entire history of the vehicle. And especially if it's a car you plan to keep a long time, I think that peace of mind is worth the few $1,000s you lose versus, buying a 1-year-old model or something. But that's just me. Some people are, want to save the money, and I understand that viewpoint as well. But yeah, I think the SS, 1LE Camaros are fantastic as far as handling and stuff goes. Very, very impressive cars. So as far as a canyon carver, definitely the best pick. I think that actually is definitely better than the Challenger, of course, and the Mustang. So you're making the right pick with the Camaro, I think. And yeah, I think buying a new one is good, especially with GM. They're giving huge discounts on Camaros. So I'm sure you can probably get at least $5,000 off of that. And so that kind of softens the blow as well of buying new. So I think it'd be worth it for sure. Joji Jim says, have you thought about doing Patreon, example, early video releases? And this is something that's been coming up more and more because a few of my other reviewers have been doing Patreons and now YouTube has the whole membership thing you can join. My struggle with that is I don't know how I could add value. And I know there's been a few people that have just mentioned they use ad block and they want to support the channel. And so they actually want to join a Patreon. I don't know if I can always provide the value there to justify someone subscribing to the channel as far as a monetary subscription. So that's kind of my struggle. And also it's tough, like, example of, posting videos early. Sometimes I don't have the luxury of posting a video early. Like many of the press drives that I go on, there's an embargo. And that's why if you'll see like me and Redline Reviews and Alex on Autos and all of us like post at the same exact minute, that's because the embargo is for, 8 a.m. at whatever time and whatever day. And so I legally cannot post that before that minute. And so that would mean that any stuff that does get posted early would be just the other reviews that I do, but it wouldn't be consistent. And I would want to provide a value there. And I don't ever want people to feel like they're ripped off or not getting anything out of it, especially after some of my longtime fans remember the Fund Anything campaign that I did many, many years ago. And I took a lot of flack for that back then. And now these days, everyone's asking for money. So it's kind of funny. I'm one of the few that does not ask for money and just does not, even want that. So I probably will not do a Patreon. Maybe in a few years, if like everyone does them and I can find a way to add some genuine value, then, maybe that's something I'll explore. But in the meantime, I'm just, like I said, I'm happy to just be doing this as my career. The ad revenue, is more than fair in my opinion that YouTube pays, and I'm happy with that. And so yeah, don't really see any need to do a Patreon right now. But yeah, other questions here. Anderson Jukebox says, yeah, the 2019 Camaro was rough, but I actually love the 2020. The new lights front and back are amazing. Yeah, they actually really improved them nicely. And even, the SS 2019s weren't great looking, but I think the lower end versions of the 2019 Camaro, like the V6 1LE that I reviewed, the 2019 one last fall, I think that actually doesn't look bad. I still think the Challenger looks cooler, and I think the Mustang still looks cooler too, but I think they did improve the 2020s a little bit. So yeah, definitely nothing to worry about, because at the end of the day, yeah, you see your car, but most of the time you're seeing the interior, not the outside. So, I wouldn't let that hold people back from buying a really great car, even if it doesn't look amazing. But Brad asks, would you consider a 2020 WRX STI, or would you wait for the next model to see the value? Is there something I should look at if considering an STI that you may know of? I would definitely wait for the new one, because the old ones, they're kind of dated. They're fantastic, and if you want, that old engine that gets terrible fuel economy, and you want, it's not a reliable motor in those either most of the time. So yeah, it's tough. It's getting tougher and tougher to recommend the STI these days. I think, the Type R is great if you don't need all-wheel drive. I think the Golf R is great if you're okay with something that's a little bit more of a sleeper. And, even the Focus RS, I think, is a little bit better in some ways, but I would certainly wait for the new STI if you're really a Subaru fan and you're, hoping that they do something better. But it's also worth checking out a Kia Stinger GT, because the used ones, even like lightly used ones, are like mid 30s. That's right in line with what you're getting with a WRX STI. And like a new STI these days is like 40 grand. 40 grand, you can get yourself a really nice Stinger GT, have the all-wheel drive. You got, 365 horsepower. It is a little bit heavier and doesn't handle as good as an STI, but it does handle very well. And so if you're not looking for an autocross car and you want something a little more comfortable, Stinger GT, I still cannot recommend enough to people. It is such a great car, and I will sing the Stinger's praises all day. Sean G asked, how is the new Camaro's visibility? Not great, but I daily drove one for a week when I had one as a press vehicle a couple years back, and you get used to it. it's not ideal, but it's really not a deal breaker in my opinion. So I wouldn't let that hold you back. But if you test drive one and it's like, absolutely not, like it's horrible to you, then that's fine. A lot of people don't like the visibility in them, but I personally think that you could probably get used to it. And again, not a deal breaker there either. Gradsky Media says, had my 2016 STI motor replaced twice as well as the turbo. I'm sorry, that is not great. Yeah, I don't know what's up with Subaru and those motors. Even the non-turbo like Subarus, seems like Subaru's had some quality stuff here off and on. So hopefully they keep making some reliable stuff, but I kind of have my doubts every once in a while when I see stuff like that. It's like, come on, like why are they not able to build an engine that can hold itself together after all these years of building that STI motor? But the Zano3 says, can you please say Subaru WRX fan one time, please? Since you're joining here in the live chat, I will say it just for you guys because you guys are all awesome. What's up, everybody? SuperX fan here with another car review. Actually, if you watched my S209 STI review, I did bring back the SuperX fan little intro there for Christmas Day of last year. So it's brought back a lot of good memories for a lot of people. Other questions here. We have Smile for Mile says, would you say that Nissan is going downhill when it comes to product quality compared to Mazda? I think so. I think Mazda has the good position right now of having very tried and true powertrains. They got a pretty old 6-speed automatic, but it's pretty reliable these days. They have their engines that have been around for a good while. So I think Mazda's, as far as I think, what was it, like JD Power or one of the things, Consumer Reports, I think, ranked their reliability very, very strongly recently. And Mazda, they're very solid vehicles for the most part. So yeah, Nissan's been having some troubles, but they do have some new stuff. Like their new CVT is still kind of unproven. So the old CVT was troublesome, but the new one maybe is better. I'm not sure. But I did like the newer CVT a lot better in the new Ultima all-wheel drive that I reviewed a couple months back. But yeah, I think Nissan, like I said, they're just kind of on the struggle bus right now. Adam asks, did you miss your BRZ? I do miss it from time to time, but I love the Bullet so much that I don't miss it too much. So BRZ was great, I'm hoping that the next gen BRZ is awesome, because if they do a convertible version of the new BRZ or the Toyota 86, either one, I'm not picky. If they do a convertible version and they improve it a little bit, I could see myself potentially getting one of those instead of getting like a used F-Type or something as my convertible third fun car down the road. But that's a big if. They dabbled with that concept of a convertible 86 a few years back, and then they never made it. If they actually do it, I think that would be something I would look into for sure. Cameron Cruz, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, dream engine swap / in what car? I like V10 S2000. That would be crazy. Actually, I think my ideal, speaking of the BRZ, I would love to do a V8 Mustang, 5.0 motor swap into a BRZ. I think there was like one dude in Japan that did that, and it seemed really sweet. Apparently, it's a very tight fit. I think you got to modify the firewall a little bit, which is kind of sketchy. But if I were to do a project car build and had unlimited money and time and a huge warehouse to do all this builds like some of these other guys do, that would probably be my first thing to do, is do a V8 swap BRZ with the Mustang motor. A lot of people do LS swaps, and that's kind of, just kind of boring these days because everyone does that. But I think doing the 5.0 swap would be pretty awesome. So that would be my dream swap. But that's a cool question. Thanks for asking, and thank you again for the super chat. Mr. Kaz says, Nissan with their trash Jatco transmissions. Yeah, a lot of people are not fans of those. I know Scotty Kilmer got everyone all riled up about those transmissions as well, but I have seen a lot of complaints with them too. So, but yeah, I don't know if they're quite as bad as everyone makes them out to be, just because there's a lot of people driving around in Rogues and Ultimas and stuff that are on the road. They're not broken down, and they're managing. So I don't think they're all that bad, but I'm sure there's quite a few that are troublesome for sure. Gustavo says C7 or C8. I will answer that question for you this weekend, because like I mentioned at the beginning of the live stream, I am going to be driving the C8 this week, and that's a very big deal. I'm very excited about that, and I'll be doing a review and posting that hopefully this weekend. And then that is one of the things I'll be seeing is it better than the C7? And I will hopefully have an answer here in a few days. So I'm very excited for that. Joshua says, would you ever consider getting a Dodge Challenger? Thank you for joining the chat. I mentioned this a little bit earlier on. I would not consider getting a Challenger personally because I care about safety ratings, and the crash test rating the IIHS did in the Challenger is not pretty. So I would not get a Challenger for that reason. Crash tests are not great. It's an old car though. It's kind of understandable. Hopefully the next gen version is safer, but that is something that would keep me out of getting a Challenger personally. Flying Tree says, would you say Dodge Challengers are reliable? I'm 16 and have 3 years of saving up. I'm planning on getting one. Yeah, I think they are fairly reliable. They got pretty bulletproof engines. And actually, I don't know which company it was. Might have been Consumer Reports that rated FCA and Dodge as one of the most reliable brands. I think they're in the top 10 now. And it's, again, you have proven powertrains. You got, pretty dated engines, proven transmissions. And so it makes for a pretty reliable package these days. So I think they are pretty reliable. And again, if the safety thing doesn't bother you, it's a phenomenal value and still just such a cool car. I love the styling on those still. Joe Taylor says, what are your initial thoughts on Infiniti doing a gas electric car that you put gas in but has electric motors? Do you mean like a plug-in hybrid? I'm not sure what you're meaning there. But yeah, I think plug-in hybrids are a good stopgap between, the gas stuff and the full EV stuff. And I think it's a good way to, get people used to driving the electric stuff around town. And then whenever you need to hit the road for a long trip, have the gas. And it's a great combo. Pat says, Matt, are you okay with your Mustang clutch feel? I found it way too springy mid-travel. It is a very tricky clutch. I think honestly the Mustang clutch is one of the hardest to use manual transmissions that I've used as far as modern cars go. It's very tricky with the catch point sometimes. But now after, being on my 4th manual transmission Mustang of this generation, I've kind of gotten the hang of it. And I think the Bullet, I'm gotten used to it. I know there is like the Stita clutch spring you can swap in, which is a little bit of a different weight. And that's something I did do that, or I got rid of the spring, the clutch spring in my EcoBoost. I did a video on that, I think. And it was okay. But personally, I'm fine with the clutch spring. It is a little tricky, but once you get used to it, it's not a big deal. Yuki says, looking forward to RAV4 Prime. I am actually. I'm very intrigued by the RAV4 Prime. Yeah, it's a very compelling vehicle, I think. The fact that they have 39 miles of electric range, and then you have 302 horsepower, and they're marketing it as like the performance version of the RAV4. I think it's a very cool combo, and I think that is going to sell like crazy for Toyota and probably be the best-selling plug-in hybrid out there this year. It's going to be a really big deal, and I hope it does well for them. I'm hoping to review one of those this year as well on the media drive. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting into one of those because I think that has a lot of promise. Noel says, there are huge discounts on Bullets new at dealerships next to me. Yeah, Bullets are getting cheap. I think there was even one I saw advertised for less than 40 grand. That's like a no question buy there. I mean, you have almost 500 horsepower, manual transmission with auto rev matching, digital gauges, all the tech and stuff, all for, yeah, that's a bargain. And yeah, so I mean, I paid, sticker price for mine, and yeah, I could have gotten it cheaper if I would have waited, but I'm glad I didn't wait because I have all the memories that, I've made here in the past 13,000 miles or so on the Bullet. It was well worth getting it early, and it's a lot of fun. Eric asks, any news on a potential Hyundai Veloster N Ultimate with a nicer interior technology, etc.? I don't know. I think they have one in Canada, right? I think I remember hearing that, but I haven't heard any news on that. The only news I've heard about Veloster N is the dual clutch transmission they'll most likely be getting from the N-Line version of the Sonata that I drove, back a couple of months ago. And so I think that's the next development for the Veloster N. Aside from that, we'll have to see what else develops. But I think it would make sense to do an Ultimate version. But I think the Veloster N isn't selling a ton from what I heard. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's a huge smash hit, possibly. So again, it's one of those things, it's tough. It's all about, sales. And if they're not selling well, then they're not inclined to keep developing them and putting money into them. Michael D'Amico says, so Matt, I have a budget of $3,000 for my first car. What would you recommend? $3,000 is a tough budget. I think One of the cars, I mean, any Honda Civic you can get for $3,000, I think would probably be a solid buy because they run forever. And especially those older ones, fantastic handling cars, a lot of fun, and very easy to work on, very cheap and easy, to maintain and stuff. So that would probably be one of my top picks. Other stuff for $3,000. I'm trying to think. If you can find like a really cheap classic car, there's some really like rough classics you can get for, that kind of money, and it would be terrible on gas and stuff, but it would be a very fun, cool experience. Something like that, maybe something looking into, but yeah, I would say going for a Civic, you can't go wrong with one of those. Noel says the GT350s that the dealership has on the lot are so amazing. 2020's gunmetal with racing stripes. Yeah, GT350s are fantastic. I just wish the motors on those things weren't so sketchy. They love having oil issues and just blowing, and yeah, just kind of a shame because the GT350, when those things go to redline, it is pure magic, as you saw in my review. But I personally would never own a GT350 just because I value reliability, and the GT350 just does not have it. And by the way, if you're curious to see what a GT350 ownership experience is like, check out my buddy Rated R Cars. He has his GT350, and unfortunately, I feel so bad for him because that car has been nothing but problems for him, and I feel so bad because he had issues with his 2018 Mustang GT, and then he went to the Shelby, and that's just a bunch of issues as well. I feel so bad for him. I hope things work out for him. Hope he gets a GT500 or something, and that's reliable because, man, yeah, those Shelbys are a little tricky, those GT350s. Zachary Jones says 2008 Toyota Camry V6 thoughts, because Toyota has been using the last 13 years. It is a proven motor. Yeah, I mean, any older Toyota is always a solid buy. Those are bulletproof, reliable, never have any issues generally, and yeah, always a solid choice. Joe says a collab with Redline Reviews. Joe, you are in luck. So Sophion and I were actually driving for the all-wheel drive Camry and Avalon drive, which is this past week. So we drove those together, and I appeared in his video and he appeared in mine. And so I'll be posting the Camry review, actually, I think Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. is when the embargo, I think, lifts on that. So that's when I'll be posting that, and he will be in that video. And then the Avalon, I will probably be posting the following weekend because this next weekend will be the C8 review most likely. So, but yeah, so I'll be collabing with him, and so you can check that out. It's always great hanging out with him. He's a great guy. Lane says, I've seen some nice Monte Carlos and Apollo SS for less than 10 grand. Yeah, those are sweet too. I mean, it seems like those are pretty good value. I've never driven one of those, so I can't weigh in personally, but all kinds of good choices out there for someone that's budget conscious. Come here, Cupcake Fuel says, hey, Matt, I'm about to get my first car. Should I get a Honda Civic Si 2012 to 2015 or a Ford Focus ST 2014 to 16? If you value low-end power, get the Focus. If you like high-revving engines and the sweetest manual you can get for the money, Civic Si all day long. Personally, if it were me, I would pick the Civic Si because it's a little more reliable. You don't have a turbo to worry about. And I like the high revving nature of the Civic Si more so than the Focus ST. But Focus ST is a solid choice too, especially if you want the versatility of the hatch and stuff. It's always a good pick as well. The Original Sayer, thank you for joining, man. He's a longtime supporter. Thanks for joining. Always good to see you here. Other questions here. Noel says 99 Chevy Tahoe, $3,500. Gas hog parts are cheap and everywhere. Yeah, another solid choice if you're not worried about any kind of sportiness. Those old GM LS motors. I mean, they are, talk about indestructible. That's like the only American thing that matches like Toyota reliability. It's kind of crazy. Carrie says, what are your thoughts on the Mustang Mach E? Well, I did do like a weekly update where I was talking about the Mach E. The Mach E is, I don't know. I cannot get around having the Mustang badging on it. If they would have just called it Mach E, no problems, whatever. Or any other name for that thing, I would have been fine with it. Even if they had the Mustang taillights in the back and stuff, I could get over that. Just the pony on it and branding it as a Mustang is still a hurdle I'm struggling to get over. I'm hoping to review one, by the end of this year, and hopefully, it'll impress me. It's tough, I mean, you even saw in the, the little documentary they had on the Mach-E about how they like started with a non-Mustang branded thing, and they just were worried that people were not going to be into it. And that was the only way to really get people's attention, is to have the Mustang branding on it. And funny story, actually, I went to the LA Auto Show back in November, and on my flight home, I was I was actually flying with my wife. She was in the aisle seat. I was in the middle seat, and the guy in the window seat had a watch on with a Mustang emblem. And I was like, that's cool. And I was actually going to do some work on my laptop, which has my Bullet as the background. So I open up my laptop, and I'm kind of glancing over at his watch. He's like glancing over at my laptop, and he's like, oh, is that your Bullet? I'm like, yeah. I was like, I see your watch. Do you have a Mustang as well? He's like, yeah. He's like, actually, I work for Ford. I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, I actually was one of the designers for the Mach E. What do you think of it? And I'm like, oh crap. I got the actual designer of this car like sitting next to me, which is like a crazy coincidence, by the way. But like, I told him, like, I said this, and this is my honest opinion. I think it looks cool. I think it's fantastic as far as looks go, especially the GT version. The non-GT one, the front end's a little not super impressive for a Mustang, but the GT looks great. But I told him, like, it looks fantastic. I'm struggling with the Mustang thing. And he's like, he said the same thing they said in the documentary. He's like, if we didn't put the Mustang badge on it, no one would have cared. And this is how we wanted to make our mark. And I was like, look, I totally understand it. And he did tell me, he's like, don't worry. The actual coupe Mustang is safe. He's like, we're working on the next one. No worries there. This is not going to harm the Mustang. It's just an addition. And I said, no problem there. I totally understand. You got to do, what Ford's got to do to stay alive, and electric is the way to go. So, I totally get it. I'm glad, they're working on the next gen Mustang. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. But that was like a crazy coincidence to be sitting next to him on a plane. Like, what are the odds? But so yeah, that was very, very cool. But yeah, so other questions here. Sorry for the little rant there, but Noel says, I have a Miata. It has been awesome, and I can supercharge it for the price of a 350Z plus maintenance plus obligatory vape juice for fat 350Z hipster clouds. That's a good one. Yeah, so 350Zs are great cars, though. I do love the 350Z. It is such a good sounding vehicle, and it's such a good value. Again, if you want something that's a good performance value. But Miatas are great too. They're a lot of fun, especially if you value handling, of course. Joe Taylor says, how many views are you happy with for a review video? It kind of depends on the type of vehicle it is. Obviously, the more views, the better. Obviously, that's what everyone always wants. But I think if a video struggles to get 10,000 views in a week, it's a failure to me. I'm obviously my own worst enemy as far as being a critic and stuff. But that's kind of, where I try to be. But also, YouTube with the Creator Studio, they have like a ranking system. So it'll have your last 10 videos. It'll show where your newest upload fits in that last 10 as far as its performance from, that time point and stuff. So it's kind of interesting because you're constantly being judged against your previous performances. And so you're always trying to outdo your previous performances. And if you don't, it's like, wow, well, this video is ranking 7 out of 10. People just aren't as interested in it. Even if like the past 10 videos have been like knocking it out of the park and this one's not doing too bad, like, just like YouTube kind of tears you down by being like, well, this one wasn't as much popular as it was with the previous ones. So there's that kind of thing going on. So it's very mentally draining in some ways being a YouTuber, because you're always trying to outdo yourself. You're always trying to make everyone happy. And it's always a moving target because, I do muscle car reviews, but then all the people that subscribe to see Toyota RAV4 videos are disappointed. And then I do all the stuff for the mainstream viewers, and then people are like, oh, like, where's the performance stuff? So it's always a tightrope walk to try and do everything that everyone enjoys. But I think one thing that I've really taken away from doing the reviews is that, at least on my channel, 75% of my views come from non-subscribers. So as much as I love all of you that subscribe to the channel and stuff, it's just, unfortunately, even with 405,000 subscribers like I have now, either it's between YouTube or just people subscribe and then just peace out and never return. I don't know what happens, but unfortunately, very few people that are subscribed to the channel actually watch the videos. So if 75% of my views are coming from non-subscribers, I got to go after the non-subscribers, and I got to do stuff that I think car buyers are looking for. And so that's why I've done more SUVs as the years have gone on, but I also still do the performance stuff. So that's why, like the Wednesday review, I always try and do something sporty for the Wednesday review for all of you that subscribed. And I know a lot of you are performance enthusiasts. I keep that stuff going for you guys, and also because that's what I enjoy doing. And so I want to make videos I'm actually enjoying and not just, doing whatever is going to get views. So I keep the performance stuff every Wednesday, but then those weekend reviews are going to be the ones that are going to go for those non-subscribers and the SUVs and stuff like that. And I always try and keep that nice balance. Hopefully you guys enjoy that and it works out okay for you. But I understand that not every review is interesting to every single person. And so no issues. I do appreciate that some of you that do watch every video and watch it all the way through and don't skip the ads and all that kind of stuff. That is very much appreciated and definitely does help. I know that's even like my buddy Chris Fix. That's one of the really big things that helps him is people watch the video, even if it's something that I'm interested in. Like many of his fans will just like put it on in the background and mute it and let it play through because that helps the YouTube algorithm. And they're like, oh man, this person watched this video the entire way through. They must love this video. Let's recommend this video to more people. And that's how you get that snowball effect and the algorithm kind of picks up on your video a lot of times. So I do appreciate those who tune in regardless, but I certainly understand many of us are very busy and it's not possible to watch everything, and I totally understand that too. JJ Man says, what is your thoughts on the Chevy Equinox? I've never driven an Equinox, honestly. I know they sell hundreds of thousands of them every year, and that's probably a car I should review, but just because they, sell so many of them. But never driven one, so I cannot give my thoughts, honestly. Sorry about that. New Media asks, though, wish list for Next Gen Z. I think Next Gen Z, my biggest thing, I think it most likely, the stuff that we've heard is very promising to me. It sounds like it's going to have the Q60 Red Sport motor with manual transmission, and I think that's going to be a great combo. The styling I've heard, could be retro with 240Z styling in the front, 300ZX styling in the back. That might be a little bit of a mixed message, but we'll see how they integrate that. I think that could be a very cool idea, and if they execute it right, it could be a fantastic looking vehicle as well as having the performance. I think one wish list thing that I think people would appreciate is an all-wheel drive option. We know it's available with the Q60, so I think making an all-wheel drive Z would make a lot of sense, and it would be great competition for stuff like the Challenger all-wheel drive and a few other vehicles like that, and could be like a good, cheaper alternative to like a Audi S5 or something like that as well. So I think all-wheel drive would be a smart thing to have as an option, especially since, again, the parts are there from the parts bin. But yeah, so anyway, we got Robert Rosario. Thank you for joining. Another supporter of the channel here. He says, any thoughts on 2020 Silverado Z71? Yeah, so I didn't do the Z71 version, but I did review a 2019 Silverado, which is the same as the 2020s. And you can go watch that video if you're curious on the Silverado. It's a good truck. It's reliable, most likely. But, as far as the interior, it's just not as good as the Ram for sure. And definitely, not even as good as the F-150 in my opinion. So I think they kind of missed the mark on the interior on the Silverado. It's not horrible, but it just, again, it's a very competitive segment. And I just don't think they put out, something super competitive as far as the interior goes. Mark Wentworth says, any new vehicle purchase for the channel? I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but basically, my main priority this year is getting a new house, because right now we only have a one-car garage, and adding cars and not having garage spaces for them, just to me is something I don't want to do. So, and that also will give me a chance to upgrade my office, because I know many of you want to see more exciting backgrounds for the weekly update and stuff. So that's the main priority, getting a house, getting a better office to do the weekly updates in. And then once I have more garage space, hopefully this year, then adding stuff as money allows. I would love to have an F-Type, a used Jaguar F-Type for a third convertible fun car to add in addition to the Bullets. Aside from that, if I have kids down the road, adding a dad car is something I might do as well. And I've mentioned in the past, the Kia Stinger GT would be one of my top picks for that, but I still have a few other contenders. Still waiting to see what comes with the new WRX, hopefully this year sometime. And, a few others that I'm considering as well. If I do, in fact, need a dad car down the road, we'll have to see. But that's about it as far as, obviously, if I had more money, I probably got 15 cars on a dream car list that I would love to buy. Those are all like if I win the lottery type cars. So in the meantime, as far as realistic stuff goes, I'd like to have some classics as well someday. I'd love to have a car from the 40s. I'd love to have something from the 50s. I'd love to have a 68 Mustang Fastback as well, but it just comes down to money. The channel does well, and I'm happy, I'm able to do this as my full-time gig, but I'm not blowing up or getting rich like some of these other YouTubers are in the car world. So unfortunately, my car editions are much slower than they are for most of the others out there, unfortunately. So, but hopefully I'll add some more stuff down the road. And I do want to do more videos with the Bullet this year for sure. So stay tuned for those. Smile per Mile says, did you see Guido the Getaway's video he posted today? I did not get a chance to watch it, but I saw that he posted for like the first time in years. That's super exciting. I'm excited to hear his thoughts on the new 911 there. Yeah, it's great that he's back. So we have another question. What do you think of the Revology Mustangs? They sound very cool. I didn't look into them too much, but it's a very cool concept. I don't stay too up to date on the whole custom car scene as much anymore as I used to. I'm all about reliability and just daily drivability these days for the most part. The Zane03 says, what's one feature that every single car should have by now? Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And most of them do. That, and I think blind spot monitoring. I think that's a very common sense thing. And I think the thing that kind of annoys me is some manufacturers is, everyone's rushing to add automatic emergency braking, which is fine because I know everyone's distracted and staring at their phones these days. So that will, hopefully lead to a lot less people getting rear-ended. But I think blind spot monitoring is another nice thing because there's a lot of people that don't look over their shoulder and don't check their mirrors. And I think that could also help with those accidents. And I think that's something that I think is worth adding to every car that's less intrusive than the automatic emergency braking and stuff like that too. So that's one thing I wish they would have more of. Excuse me. Sean says 2020 Nissan Sentra thoughts. I am hoping to get a Sentra press car here sometime this spring because I'm curious to test one of those out, but I have not driven one, so I'm not sure how it'll go, but I've heard some pretty good things about them. Jason says, hi, Matt. I've been subtitling your videos between college work. Any reviews you want done specifically? I'm currently working on your 2018 Golf R review currently. Thank you so much, Jason. Yeah, I posted, I think, a community post on YouTube a few months back about the subtitling. Thank you so much for doing that. That really does help, especially for people who don't speak English. Because even if the subtitles are in English, at least it gives YouTube a good subtitle basis that then they can do their own auto translations into different languages, and then that really helps to make the reviews accessible to other people who don't speak English, and that's really, really helpful. And it's also really helpful for people who want to watch on mute, which I know is sometimes convenient for people when they're just kind of scrolling and in places where they can't listen to every word on a video. Having the subtitles really helps. So thank you so much. To answer your question though, I think probably just doing the videos that get the most views is probably a little bit of, the most helpful, just because like those videos are the ones that people are continuing to watch. And those are the ones that, I know for a fact that they have been a hit with people that have seen them already. And so expanding that success to the people who, aren't able to listen to the video or want it in a different language, I think that would certainly help. So stuff like my Nissan 350Z review, like that's, several years old, but that's got over 1 million views. I still get, at least like 1,000 views on that every day or two. It continues to grow. So stuff like that, is great. Any of the other videos that are really high views, those are kind of the best ones, I think, if, you have time to do them. But thank you so much. That is so nice of you to spend the time, because I know it takes a long time to subtitle those videos. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for doing that. That's very, very kind of you. So really appreciate that. If there's anything I can do to give you a shout out or anything down the road, if you ever have anything you'd like to ask of me, definitely send me an email and I'll be more than happy to oblige. Joe asks, bring back your Fedora hat to the channel. Yeah, that's an old review. The Chevy Malibu review from 7 years ago or something. I had the Fedora on. Yeah, that was a risk that I will probably not take again. I wish fedoras were in fashion. I still love the Fedora. I just cannot bring myself to do it. I'm not a trendsetter fashion-wise, clearly, as you can see by the stuff that I wear. So yeah, I don't think I could bring the Fedora hat back as much as I would like to. Maybe someday style will change, but in the meantime, they're going to stay in the closet. Caleb says, hey man, keep up the great work. Love your videos. Thank you for joining, Caleb. That Washer Nerd says, my Legacy GT just blew up. Thoughts on a 2006 IS250? That's a bummer about your Legacy. I love my Legacy GT. They're so much fun. 2006 IS, I've not driven the 250. I did a 350. Very solid cars. I think the 250 is just not very quick. So as long as you're not worried about power, it's going to definitely feel slower than your Legacy GT, unfortunately. But it can be a solid choice. I think also maybe less reliable than the Lexus, but you could look into like an Infiniti G37 sedan. That could be a fun choice that also has good power and should be fairly reliable as well. But yeah, so Steve-O says, I really want to do car reviews, but there are so many reviewers now, I'm afraid it won't work, and I'm not sure what different aspect I could bring to the reviews. Yeah, I actually get a lot of people that send me messages saying, how do I start a channel? How can I do reviews? How did you get into reviews? And if that's a video you guys would like me to see, I could kind of walk through how I got to the position of doing reviews. I mean, the Cliff Notes is basically I had friends that own car dealerships. I had the ability to review, I had my pick of dozens of cars from the very beginning. And, that really helped because getting the cars is one of the hardest parts. But I think that's someone was asking about, views and how to stay motivated on YouTube. And that is, I think, one thing is there's been so much competition in the past few years that has come up with new channels that have been wildly successful. And that just, I know you guys only have so much time to watch reviews. And so if there's, 10 new options as far as new car review channels out there, I know that it makes it tougher for all of us to get views. And that's just, that's the nature of free markets and competitiveness. If you're not rising to the top, then you get left behind. So I do my best to compete. But yeah, I think that's really the tough thing with starting a channel these days, especially in the car review world, because there's no barrier to entry, which is great. I mean, that's how I got into this, is the fact that I could just turn on a camera and start doing it. And it used to not be the case when you had to work for a magazine. So it's great that it's available to anyone, but especially these days, it's so oversaturated that trying to stand out is really tough. So you got to be really unique. I think that's kind of how Doug DeMuro's kind of, gotten their uniqueness with, the way that he does stuff. And there's a few others that have really done unique stuff, but trying to stand out is really tough. It's not impossible. It just, you got to have a different take on it. And I think the buddy reviews recently, like what the Straight Pipes do, has been a common thing that's been, pretty popular. But even that, like you got Throttle House, you got all these other channels that are doing buddy reviews now. So even that's not super unique. So trying to come up with something new is tough. And that's why even with me, I've been starting to integrate my wife, Beth, into the interior reviews, just trying to do, again, something a little bit different to stand out. And there's not a lot of female reviewers. So I wanted to bring her in and, try and have a little bit of a different take there and, see how that works. But as far as, tips on how to stand out, it's just really got to sit down and try and find your niche, try and find something you can do different than others and a value you can add, and not just being a copycat. I think that is really the way that you'll stand out, because you could just, copy the success that others have had. And that's totally possible. And some people have gotten success that way. But it just makes it harder to stand out. So it's definitely an uphill battle, but if you can crack into it, it's a lot of fun for sure. I absolutely love what I do every day. Captain Bear Pants says, I've been watching you for years. I enjoy your channel. Thank you for your support. Fantastic username as well. Car Guy 11 is here. He's another YouTuber here in the Pittsburgh area. Thanks for joining, Marco. He's got a 2020 Supra. If you guys are curious to see the ownership experience of a Supra from someone who isn't doing a wide body 2JZ swap Supra and it's just a normal ownership experience, he is your guy. You can go check him out, and hopefully we'll do some cruises this year, Marco. Definitely send me a text when you guys are out hitting some back roads. I'd love to join in the Bullet and maybe do some vlogs for the channel of all of us just kind of hanging out, because me and Marco and a few of the other guys in our friend group, we used to go cruising all the time back in the day, and past few years have been busier, so I haven't had much of a chance to do that as much as I'd like to, but hopefully this year I can do more and I can justify it as doing vlogs for you guys, and hopefully we can kind of get some momentum going with the vlogs and keep doing that some more. But Joe says, do you reckon America would get the Mazda 3 with the Skyactiv X engine and the manual transmission? Manual is a big if. I think the Skyactiv X, they said they wanted to bring it to the States, but now they're saying they don't know if they're going to bring it, because I think their struggle is the Skyactiv X engine is basically hardly any more powerful than the current 2.5 liter non-Skyactiv X engine, and you get better fuel economy, but it's a lot more expensive. So it's a price premium, and it's like, okay, you're saving a few MPG, but you're also spending however many thousands of dollars extra. When are you going to make that money back? And so then it becomes like, well, if you own the car for 5 years or more, then it'll, pay itself off, with that upcharge. I think it's just a struggle from a cost standpoint right now. If they can, bring the cost down, or eventually they're just going to have to get into the Skyactiv X engine just because they're going to need the better fuel economy. But in the meantime, I think they're probably just going to stick with, the tried and true thing that they have with the Mazda 3 and its standard engine. I think it's, going to serve most people just fine. They probably will hold off on the Skyactiv X for now, is my guess. Anyway, Car Guy 11's excited for the Bronco reveal. I'm excited for it as well. I think the spy shot's been very promising so far, and I think we'll have to see. I've always thought the Broncos are really cool, and I think having a challenger to the Wrangler would be great. So that'll be cool. Noah says 2004 Infiniti G35 Coupe thoughts. I actually reviewed a G35 Coupe. You can go search on the channel for that review if you're curious. It's a fun car, and that's another really good value. If you can find one that hasn't been beaten up too much, it's a very solid choice, and I think they're still really good looking cars too. They've aged so well. I love those things. They're great. The boat skier says golf all track with a stick thoughts. Enjoy your channel, man. Thank you for watching the videos. I've never driven an all track with the stick. I did do the golf sport wagon with an automatic. That was a pleasant experience. That was about 5 years ago or so. But I enjoyed it. I think it's a shame they got rid of the all track though. That was really cool to have with the manual. Never driven one, but I'm guessing it's going to have decent power. He's got that nice torquey 2-liter turbo motor from Volkswagen, and I think it'd be a good combo. But yeah, I've never driven one, so I can't say. But I mean, if you want a manual lifted wagon, it's the only way to go, and I think it's a very cool choice. Certainly worth owning, I think. Stay Woke says, I have an 06 G35 Coupe. It still drives and handles excellent. There you go. Yeah, they're fantastic. Great choice. And thanks for joining as well, Stay Woke. He's another frequent commenter on the channel here. I really appreciate it. Snarkle says, any exciting supercar reviews coming soon? Well, I mentioned earlier, so I don't know if you consider the C8 a supercar, but I will be reviewing the new Corvette here this week and posting a review this weekend. Outside of that, I don't think I have any supercars in the works. It depends. I have a few that have been offered to me by private owners. It's just a matter of making the trips, and they're pretty long trips. And usually supercar reviews do not do well on my channel because they're just not relatable. My McLaren videos, I did the 720S and the 570S Spider and stuff. Nobody cared. Very few people watched those. So I don't, as much as I would love to drive supercars, I don't rush at the opportunity to review them because it just does not do good views wise. So, but yeah, I'd like to. I got a few cool ones that have been offered, so we'll just have to see how my travel schedule pans out this year. Maybe I'll get a chance to review some of them. David T, thank you so much for your super chat. His question here says, have an 18 BMW 340i xDrive 6-speed, almost certainly the last ever all-wheel drive inline-six manual BMW. Have you driven one? The new M3 340i are nice, but auto only, so pass. Yeah, I can understand that. So I did a 335i with the manual, but it was not a sport package car. That was several years ago. You can search. I think that was a 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Same generation though. And the suspension was really, really soft, and I was kind of disappointed with the handling on it, honestly. But I have not driven with the M Sport package. I do have someone in, I believe it's South Carolina, that has one that they offered to me, but that is a very long drive for me. So I don't know if I'll get a chance to review that, but I have driven a few of that generation BMWs in the past, just not with the sport package, but I think makes all the difference. But it's a very great combo. And yeah, having the manual and the inline six, very cool cars. I'm sure you love it, I'm sure. So, all right, let me see here. We're getting close. I was aiming for about 2 hours here. We got about 9 minutes to go. So I'll do a few more questions here. Michael Earl says, would you consider going back to the Woodward Dream Cruise this year? I would love to. I had a ton of fun there. From a video standpoint, that would be tough because my Woodward vlog did not get any views. So I would just have to go for fun and forget about filming it probably, unless I can come up with something more exciting to film. But I thought I had a lot of fun, and I thought the video was kind of cool, but just did not take off. So yeah, I'd like to go though. It was a lot of fun last year, and it was a very kind of relaxing thing to just kind of sit at an open air restaurant and just watched cars go by. It was really cool. Such a unique experience. I don't know if I'll make it there this year, but hopefully, in future years. And if I have an opportunity to this year, I'd like to. But don't know if I could justify it from a video standpoint, though, unfortunately. We have Sky Hicks says, thoughts on the new 4-cylinder Super. I wonder if having different trim options will keep things closer to MSRP for both and or maybe more of a performance bargain. Yeah, it's really going to come down to what the pricing is for that. So I talked about this 4-cylinder Super in this past week's weekly update if you want to hear more thoughts on it and everything. But I'm excited for it. I think having choices is always a good thing. I think it's great, to offer it for people who want it. I think it'll be really the perfect choice for those who do want to mod and engine swap, especially, and people who just like the styling and just, don't care about the straight line performance. It's the same thing as, a lot of people that buy EcoBoost Mustangs, V6 Challengers, they just want the look. They don't care about having the fastest thing. And I think that 2-liter Super will probably fill that niche very well. And I hope that certainly helps the sales for them, because I think the Super has been selling okay, but I don't think it's selling amazingly. And so hopefully that does help give them some more volume there on Super sales. Ram, thank you so much for the Super Chat. I appreciate it. Cool little emoji there going on. Thank you so much. I appreciate the Super Chat. Noel says, stay in school, children, and don't buy Nissans. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are not in a Nissan for some reason. They make some good stuff these days, but yeah, like I mentioned earlier, they've kind of lost their way in some ways. Rithik says, favorite acceleration reaction, your Boss 302, CTSV, F-Type, and GT350 reactions were the best in my opinion. I agree. I think those are probably some of the best ones. I think the Camaro ZL1 is also one of the top ones. That was really crazy. I think the F-Type one was the one one of the most giddy ones. That and the GT350 are probably my favorite reactions personally, because the F-Type I just loved in general because I was just a huge fan of the F-Type already, and it was just everything I had hoped the F-Type would be and more. And so that was truly a bucket list thing, as well as just being very impressive from a reviewing standpoint. GT350, again, is just so glorious with that red line. So that was another very, very special one. We'll see if the C8 review that is dropping hopefully this weekend, if that reaction is amazing or not. I have not driven it yet. I'll be driving it this week, and we will see if it impresses me. But it has all the numbers. Should be very impressive. So hopefully there'll be a new all-time best reaction this week. I think Chevy can do it. We'll just have to see. Noel says, how do you like supercharged BRZ versus supercharged Miata RF? Not driven a supercharged Miata, so I'm not sure how that would drive, but I do like the Miata better than the BRZ. So I'm guessing I would like the Miata supercharged better than a supercharged BRZ, but it'd be hard to say. Ian says, would you be interested in the Hot Rod Power Tour this year? Starts in Ohio. That's awesome. Yeah, so the Hot Rod Power Tour sounds really cool. The only thing that I've heard about it is that it really is better done in an automatic transmission car, because there's so many people on the Hot Rod Power Tour. I actually was talking with Eric the Car Guy about this because he did it. And he's like, he actually did a video explaining why the Hot Rod Power Tour is fun, but in a manual it's not fun, because you have dozens of cars all lining up, and then you hit a stop sign, and a stop sign means that everyone has to stop, and then you inch up for 20 minutes till you get to the stop sign, and then you go. And anyone who drives a manual transmission knows that is not fun to do. And it's also a big time commitment. I'm so busy, especially during the warmer months of the year, that, blocking out an entire week or whatever, for the power tour is just a big commitment. And that means that I have to turn down other opportunities. And it means that I have a more constricted schedule because I got to edit a bunch of stuff ahead of time. So I have videos going live while I'm away. Like taking vacations and stuff is very hard for me, because it's like going away means I got to work ahead so that I have stuff that's still going live while I'm away. And the YouTube algorithm, they like to say oh yeah, you can take a break whenever you want. But the reality is, anyone who does take a break on YouTube and then comes back, even if it's only a week or two, the algorithm, for some reason, it just doesn't want to promote your videos as much. And so it's like this beast you constantly have to feed, or else they're like, oh wait, maybe this guy just dropped off the face of the earth. Let's not recommend his videos anymore. So I'm really hesitant to, go away on long trips usually, unless there's going to be a ton of content and it's going to be worthwhile. But yeah, Bill Phillips asks, production C8 drive. Yeah, it's going to be the production models that I'll be driving here. It's an official media drive that Chevy's doing for the C8, and should be very, very fun. So I'm looking forward to it. Sean G says, any events on the West Coast this year for you? As of right now, I don't think I have anything planned for the West Coast. That certainly can change. Sometimes I have stuff that pops up literally a few weeks beforehand. And then usually at some point during the year, I do make it out to LA for something or, something like that. But as of right now, no plans for West Coast stuff currently. And Joji Jim says, hope you get to drive the Alpine A110 whenever you're in Europe next time. I would love to do an Alpine A110. Those sound so awesome. And it's a bummer we don't get those here in the States. That would be very cool. So we have Joe Taylor saying, my favorite video is your 2013 Chevy Malibu review with your stunning outfit. Yeah. That fedora was hilarious. Zachary Jones says 2006 Nissan Altima V6 SER manual transmission. Another solid choice from the era whenever you could actually have V6s with manuals. That's getting to be a harder and harder to find combination. Impending Disaster 26 says, car that you were hyped to review but let you down when you got to it, and why? Wow, that is a good question. I got to think about this one. I'm going to take a drink while I think. I don't know. I think you've stumped me. You've managed to make me shut up. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a car that disappointed me. I think, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm sure there are definitely cars that disappoint me. I think like one car recently that disappointed me was the new Legacy and Outback from Subaru. I thought they were going to be better than they were as far as handling and as far as just everything about them. The safety systems were really annoying and stuff. So I think the newest Subarus are probably the most recent disappointment, but I wasn't really hyped about those. I just was expecting it to be a comfortable Subaru, and it is a comfortable Subaru, just not as exciting as, the stuff like the Accord and the Camry and stuff these days. All right. I can do like one more question here. We're close to 2 hours. Accord Sport 2.0T or Civic Si? Depends if you need extra room or not, but personally, I actually think I prefer the handling of the Accord Sport more so than the Civic Si. In all fairness, though, I have only done the Sport 1.5T, which has a less weight over the front nose than the 2.0T does. I'm still begging Honda to send a press vehicle of the Sport 2.0T. Haven't had any luck with that yet with the manual, but hopefully I can get one of those eventually to review. But the Civic Si still just feels a little heavy for how light it actually is. It's just kind of a weird disconnect for me. That's one vehicle that, the Civic Si, that new generation that came out a few years ago, I had hopes that it would be okay, but, I still miss that high revving, naturally aspirated engine. And I think the newest Civic Si is a little bit of a disappointment to me, and I would rather have the Accord personally. So yeah, I think that's about it. We just hit two hours here. So I think I'm going to end it there. I do want to do these more often though, because these are really enjoyable. And especially this one, we had a really great turnout here. We still got 177 of you watching. That's really great. So I appreciate all of your questions. Hopefully I managed to get most of your questions answered for you guys. But yeah, thank you very much for all your support here on the channel. Hopefully you enjoy the reviews. I got the Camry all-wheel drive coming this Tuesday, a review on that. And then I have the C8 Corvette coming this weekend, most likely. So stay tuned for that one. And of course, follow me on social media if you want to see updates in the meantime. Before then, I'll be posting on my Instagram story this week as I'm at the Corvette event and stuff. But that's going to be a big deal. That's going to probably be one of the most exciting reviews of the year. So definitely stay tuned for that this coming weekend. Should be a lot of fun. But anyway, thank you guys very much for joining me on this live stream here. And I'll see you on the next one. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. I'll be doing another one of these here, maybe in March or something like that. We'll try and do another one again. Thank you guys. Have a great week. And thanks again for joining.